Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And I actually had two viewers request this one, and it is for the 1991 film Drop Dead Fred. Here is your trivia question for today. Name any of the other four imaginary friends that Fred interacts with at the doctor's office. The answers will be at the end of this episode. So, in the film Drop Dead Fred, we meet our main character of Elizabeth. Now, Lizzie is currently not having a good time. Her husband is leaving her for another woman. She just lost her job. Her car was stolen. And her overbearing mother is now forcing her to move back into her childhood home with her. So, dealing with all of this stress has caused Lizzie to remember back when things were much simpler and much happier when she was a child. And what made those times so good was her imaginary friend, Drop Dead Fred. Now, he definitely was annoying and did give her the nickname of Snotface, but he did always care about her, even though he got her into quite a bit of mischief. While reminiscing, Lizzie does discover an old Jack in the Box, which apparently is where Fred has been hiding this whole time. But now, Drop Dead Fred is back. But will Fred be there to help her through her hard times, or is he just going to make her life even more of a living hell? This movie was directed by 8 DeJong. However, though, it almost went to Tim Burton, but he ended up turning it down. The character of Drop Dead Fred is played by Rick Mayall, and honestly, I cannot imagine anyone else doing as good of a job as he did. Apparently, the character was originally written with John Cleese in mind, but that did not end up happening. They also reached out to Robin Williams, who ended up turning it down. And I think that was for the best, for two reasons. Number one, because I do think that Rick Mayall was the better choice, and because Williams decided to do Hook instead, which is also an amazing movie. A sad fact, by the way, both Mayall and Williams passed away in the summer of 2014. The character of Elizabeth was played by Phoebe Cates. I definitely think she did a good job, but it is interesting to find out who else was up for that role. Initially, they were thinking of going with Winona Ryder, but some people thought she was too young, and she ended up turning it down as she was already working on Mermaids. Other actresses that were also up for the role were Molly Ringwald, Julia Roberts, Carrie Green, Martha Plimpton, Jennifer Connelly, Leah Thompson, Uma Thurman, Carrie Fisher, Goldie Hawn, and Rosanna Arquette. As Charles the Slimeball X, Tim Matheson played that role, but other actors that were also up for it were Alec Baldwin, John Getz, Jeff Goldblum, Jeffrey Jones, and Rick Moranis. So I didn't really run into anyone else who was up for the role of Polly other than Marsha Mason, but I at least wanted to mention that I think she did a great job because I absolutely hated her character. As Elizabeth's best friend Janie, we have Carrie Fisher, who did originally audition to play the role of Elizabeth. Now, two other actresses that were also up for this role were Gina Davis and Beverly D'Angelo. The role of Mickey Bunce was played by Ron Eldard. Now, I was surprised to find out the amount of people that would go on to become huge stars that were also up for this role, including Josh Brolin, Michael J. Fox, Anthony Michael Hall, Matthew Modine, Keanu Reeves, and Charlie Sheen. As young Elizabeth, we have Ashley Peldon, and I thought she did a very good job in this movie, although I do find it funny that no one pointed out that she and Phoebe Cates have completely different eye colors. Now, initially, they were going to reach out to Allison Porter to play this character, but she was already working on Curly Sue. Then they attempted to try and see if they could get Jodie Sweetin, but the producers on Full House refused to give her the time. A few other actresses that were also up for this role were Christina Ricci, Kirsten Dunst, Ariana Richards, and Anna Klumsky. Did you happen to notice that Bridget Fonda made an uncredited cameo as Annabella? She was good friends with Phoebe Cates, and this is why she was willing to come and do it. Here's another interesting cameo. The character of Grandma Bunce, shown in a flashback, was played by the director's mother. Also, when she gets hit with all of that paint, it was actually yogurt. The steamboat used in the film was an actual residence. It was, however, not destroyed like it seems to be in the film. When producers of this film first saw test screenings, they thought that Rick Mayall's accent would cause an issue, and they asked him if he'd be fine with them dubbing over his voice with something that sounded a bit more American. Mayall obviously refused, and I'm glad he did because I can't imagine the character sounding any other way. In fact, him having an accent brings up something to think about. The only other character with a British accent in this movie is, in fact, Elizabeth's father, and the only other person that she truly loved. The movie was entirely filmed in Minnesota. There were talks of doing a sequel shortly after the first film released, but Rick Mayall declined the role. They did even talk about recasting the role and bringing in a newer face to the silver screen named Jim Carrey. Now, this did not end up happening though, as Carrey was already signed on to do Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. Then in 2009, there was talks of a sequel or reboot with Russell Brand. This also never ended up happening. So when it comes to the film Drop Dead Fred, I absolutely loved this movie as it was a big part of my childhood. One of the things that I thought that was great about this movie is whether you're a child or an adult, I think you can find amusement in it. I only have two issues. Number one, the two people on Elizabeth's side, Janie and Mickey, placate her completely. I don't know why they do this. Like, if my friend started acting like that, I would try to help them, but I would not be taking it seriously. And then secondly, the way that Elizabeth reacts to Fred being around sometimes, like I don't know if it's just me and maybe I'm a little crazy myself, but there's a part of me that when I sit there and I watch this, I go, I would handle this a lot better than she does. So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. Now, if you did enjoy this film, other movies I recommend are Little Monsters, Monkey Bone, Beetlejuice, and Mannequin. Now it's time to answer the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. Name any of the other 4 imaginary friends that Fred interacts with at the doctor's office. So as long as you knew one of these names, you answered correctly. And those 4 other imaginary friends are Go to Hell Herman, Velcro Head, Graggy, and Namby Pamby. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. And if there's a movie that you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.